In order to understand what happens to our bodies in the perimenopause and menopause, we need to understand a little bit about the menstrual cycle. Our ovaries produce estrogen and progesterone in a cyclical way, driven by hormones produced by our pituitary gland, which is a little gland in our head. And the pituitary produces something called follicle stimulating hormone, which pushes the ovary to produce estrogen. The estrogen makes the lining of the womb build up ready for a fertilized egg, and the follicles in the ovary, which contain tiny eggs, develop over the first half of our cycle until the levels of estrogen reach such a level that one of those little follicles pops and we ovulate, the egg bursts out, and at that point the estrogen levels are very high. From then on in, the little follicle left behind produces the estrogen and progesterone to keep the lining of the womb ready for a fertilized egg. But if this doesn't happen, then at the end of the cycle, our lining of the womb sheds, the estrogen and progesterone levels dip, and the egg goes away with the lining of the womb in a period. So midway through our cycles, our estrogen levels are high, and during a period they're low. Quite a lot of women notice this, so you may have noticed that you felt great mid-cycle and very tired during a period, simply put, and those can be the effects of estrogen. As we get older, so our ovaries become less responsive to the hormones produced by our pituitary gland, so they're less sensitive, so we produce more of that hormone, of the follicle stimulating hormone, but it just doesn't do the job anymore quite so well, and so some of the time our ovaries never produce enough estrogen to create that estrogen surge we need to make ovulation happen. What that means is that our estrogen levels can dip and they can fluctuate quite a lot. There's a number of feedback loops that come into play here, but basically in the years leading up to the time when we completely stop having periods, our hormone levels are fluctuating quite a lot, so that we may get quite a lot of symptoms from the changes in estrogen level and from the dips in estrogen level. Estrogen is important in actually most of the sort of systems in our body because there are estrogen receptors everywhere. So it affects our skin and our mucous membranes. By mucous membranes, I mean the linings inside of things, so in our mouth, in our eyes, in our vaginas. So if we have not enough estrogen, the linings become quite dry. Also in our connective tissue, and that can lead to all sorts of symptoms like sore gums, dry or watery eyes, a sore, itchy or dry vagina, and that can lead to difficulties with sex and also to problems with urinary tract infections. It affects our connective tissues, so we can get stiff and sore muscles and joints. It affects our bones, so we're more prone to brittle bones and osteoporosis as we get older. It affects our blood vessels, making them potentially a little bit stiffer, and it affects our brains in lots of different ways. So we might notice the sort of symptoms of estrogen loss like we do with a period, so feeling tired, feeling anxious, maybe our mood changing, maybe headaches. It also affects our thermostat, our internal thermostat, so we become less tolerant to temperature changes. Our body can't deal with them as well, so we're more likely to get the sort of night sweats and hot flushes and things. And those symptoms can start a long time before we actually have our final period. So our cycles may change, they may become longer, our periods may become longer or shorter. But underlying all that is this reducing estrogen, which gives us all these symptoms.